ESPN has chimed in on Georgia's quarterback race going into the fall. Here's what Harry Lyles had to say. He said, it's safe to say that Carson Beck is going to be the first to get a shot as a starting quarterback. However, if he were to struggle, Georgia's schedule allows the Bulldogs to experiment and figure out who really is the best fit for the offense. Georgia's first four games are at home against UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, UAB. Smart hasn't been afraid to switch things up at quarterback when they haven't worked in the past. So I don't think people should expect this season to be any different, especially with Georgia feeling like they can get a third consecutive title. That's a great example of writing a lot of words and not saying anything. If Carson Beck is not your starting quarterback in 2023, something strange has happened. There's a much better way of putting it. Um, and we've seen strange things happen. We've seen injuries that have derailed Jacob Eason, JT Daniels. We've seen poor play, whether you're talking about Dwan Mathis or Stetson Bennett at times, or I mean, Stetson was injury too. So there's any number of things that can slow things down for you at quarterback and cause a change. And we've seen with Kirby, they have gone to a change. They're not at all bothered by that. We've seen quarterback change in 16, 17, 20, 21. So that's a lot of seasons where we've seen the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season not be the starting quarterback, even in game two. So, I am curious to know why they didn't roll, why they went with Dwan Mathis, who was deer in the headlights um, in that Arkansas game. Jeez, that was rough. But I understood why they went with him to some degree because if you just watched him play live, like in person, he the amount of ground he could cover running was insane. And I mean insane. He just couldn't play quarterback. That's kind of a big problem when you're talking about these things. But it would be surprising, y'all, if Carson wasn't the starter and take it from there. And I don't think there's enough there's not enough data that I've seen that would suggest that Vandegrift is going to take over at any stage. That we're talking about that there would have to be an injury. Um, I think Beck is that far ahead, but now I'm not running Harry Lyles down. I don't know him in any way. I'm just saying that um, I don't know anybody that thinks that Vandegrift is going to start personally. And I feel like I know a little bit about the program here and there, but I think there are things with Vandegrift that are very intriguing for sure as we look over the horizon to the future. He's talking about Dwan Mathis running. Now, the difference between the way that Mathis runs and the way that Vandegrift runs is with Mathis, he can get there quickly because of his length. With Vandegrift, he's just really fast, like fast, and is very sudden. But he's just got to really develop on the quarterback side of things. It's not a different problem really than Mathis. It's one thing to be for your position to be quarterback. It's another to play the position well. And we're going to see with Carson Beck how well he can play the position. It looks like he can play the position pretty well. It looks like he's a better quarterback right now than Vandegrift. It looks like he's a better quarterback right now than Gunnar Stockton. But that's not the same thing as the pressure that that Carson will have on him over time. The best thing for Carson was how much he played this past season. And, like for instance, I'm going to the page with Vanderbilt. He played against South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Oregon, Texas Christian, Auburn, Georgia Tech, and somebody else. I can't even remember. Hey, if you want double dogs, we're giving 5 of them away for free, but you have to be a member of our newsletter. You have to sign up between May 1st and May 15th. If you've not done that yet, the link is down below. You're running out of time. So I think, for Carson, having the ability to play a lot matters. And I hope whoever the backup is, and it may be Vandegrift, it could be Stockton. I don't know, okay? But that person needs to be ready to go when it's time to go. One thing that was so important about, in talking to Carson, one thing that was so important for him in 2022 was that he prepared for the future. He prepared, excuse me, for the present. He prepared for playing against Auburn or Oregon or whoever. You know, it's easy to talk about that. It's easy to talk about that. Like everybody talks about, oh, I'm putting the work in or whatever, language they want to use. Um, it's very different to do it and do it literally every single game and to be prepared for that moment in time that you're called on. We've seen that twice at Georgia in Kirby's time. We've seen two quarterbacks go to national championship games because they were ready for the moment, not the national championship moment, but for the moment that they had to come in. Think about, see, I don't know how many of y'all remember clearly the situations. I was at both of them. Now, most people cannot say that. In 2017, when Jake Fromm was thrust into his situation, he was basically ready to go. I mean, he played quarterback. He does not have the physical tools of Jacob Eason. He just doesn't. So that's out the window. But every sport is not about who can jump the highest or, you see that in the NBA now, man. I mean, like, it's not about who can jump the highest. It's about who can score the most. It's about who can Euro step and who can slow down before they go to the basket and get the defender off of them. Quarterback is not dissimilar. I mean, it's about, can you play the position? Are you calling the right calls at the protections? Are you calling the right protections when you get to the line of scrimmage? Who's the mic? What's the mic doing? Are they blitzing? Are you going to line with two plays or three? The old Mike Bobo stuff, you're going to be going to the line of scrimmage with two or three plays. And whatever is shown, if this, then this. That's and that's pre-snap. Then you've got to see what happens post-snap. So from although not I do think it took him a while, like 10 games, to get where he needed to go throwing the ball. He was never really a super gifted thrower of the football in terms of, when you compare him to Stetson, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Murray, a lot of the quarterbacks that Georgia has started. But he could play the position, which is really important, okay? And then, you fast forward to that day in Fayetteville. And what happened that night or day? It was a day in Fayetteville. It was a 3 o'clock local start, and DJ Shockley was calling the game. I remember. I remember how everything was set up. That was the first time I had flown. They were talking about late September. I had basically been at home since middle March with the kids because of COVID. We didn't have school. It was on Daddy Dean to get it done, and everything had been virtual. And you're watching, and man, it felt like Georgia was going to lose to Arkansas. That's what it really felt like at the half. I think they were losing, but it felt like they were going to lose. It just did not play well. And that Stetson had already come in the game. And then things settled down. So what I'm saying is Stetson was ready for his moment. Jake Fromm was ready for his moment. And that moment is not a certainty to happen. But if you don't prepare, you will not be ready. And Carson did not get the advantage of seeing Stetson Bennett get knocked out of a game or get hurt, or nothing prevented Stetson from playing and starting in all these games. So we never saw what Carson Beck was doing to prepare. We didn't. Well, it's all in the shadows, right? But if you don't do that, you won't ever know. Now, what ESPN's talking about, that's fine. We all have off-season content. Hey, man, I get it. Okay, but you know, the last line, Smart isn't afraid to switch things up at quarterback when they haven't worked in the past. So I don't think people should expect this season to be any different, especially with Georgia feeling like they can get a third consecutive championship. They totally feel like they can win the national championship again. But I think they're totally comfortable with Carson Beck. I do not anticipate. I don't. Right now, I don't see where there would be a change at quarterback. You could see a change in 2020. That is a huge difference between this scenario and back then. In 2020, the difference there. Okay, you started three quarterbacks in 2020. You might have started four, but remember Jamie Newman was there and pulled out this is like the guy's just like a ghost. He's gone. I don't know what's going on with him. Nothing. And I know I'm not going to go report on it because I mean it's just too much trouble for me. But that was who was possibly going to start. It was possibly Jamin Newman. But there was, this was a time at which, they were telling Stetson, hey, you're not going to play here. You're not going to be a starter here. It's not going to happen. And to his credit and emphasizing his stubbornness, he stuck around and he did what he had to do. But he was ready for his moment, and that's the question. If Carson did everything in 2022 to be ready for his moment, we'll see that in 2023. We just will.